Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Astral Chain Legion Showcase. That's right, I'm finally going to be covering my most anticipated game of 2019, and I'm going to kick things off with the Axe Legion, my favorite out of all the legions by a country mile, and honestly, a very exciting twist on what was my favorite weapon class in any action game or RPG ever, and I'm really excited to share with you guys my current playstyle. Granted, this game is still crazy new, so this means that most of the ideas that I have here are subject to be updated in a future video, so please stay tuned for that if you want to look for something a little bit more optimal. But otherwise though, like I said earlier, this game is still crazy new, so I'm gonna try to keep this video as spoiler light as possible. I'm gonna be avoiding any enemies or areas or skills that will kind of give away any plot details, so don't worry about that too much if you haven't had a chance to beat the story like I have. But I will say that this particular video will take place in the context of the post-game. That doesn't really give away anything, really, but if that's still too much of a spoiler for you guys, you may want to wait until later. Other than that though, going back to the Axe, what makes the Axe so fantastic is that in combination with its heavy damage, its ability to detonate cores, and the ability to summon a barrier, it really does invite a much more in-your-face, up-close and personal fighting style. And one of my favorite things about Astral Chain right now is the perfect call ability, which, as you can see on the screen right now, it just lets you deflect enemy attacks right before they hit you with it, but the Axe Legion does it the best out of all of them by virtue of his barrier. So a bit of a detail that I want to give to you guys is that when you summon the barrier and an enemy tries to hit you with a melee attack, it will deflect and it'll bounce back. If you do this in conjunction with a perfect call and you keep hitting the attack button as the deflection animation is happening, you will be able to immediately follow up with some more attacks, and with more attacks come more options. You can do things like you can go for a chain bind, you can go for a ground combo, you can go for a legion jump. There's just so many possibilities, and you're just turning the momentum against the enemy, and that's what makes the Axe Legion so exciting for me. So yeah, the perfect call opens itself to so many options, very useful to have overall, but all legions also have the ability to follow it up with a sync attack. The sync attack in the context of the Axe Legion is a large downward slash, and once he finishes the downward slash, he will plant a core, which will detonate after a set amount of time. This is very good for crowd control. In fact, a lot of the Axe Legion's attacks will result in some explosions, so the Axe Legion is really good for single target and crowd control simultaneously, and that's why I love it so much. So I'm going to quickly look over at the abilities. This is definitely going to be the bulk of what the videos will be about moving forward, I'm betting. And as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, this is pretty much what my playstyle is all about. As you can see, the perfect call E-heal. The cool thing about E-heal in this game is that whatever your capacity is, as long as you keep recharging it, you will continuously go over your limits, and with more limits comes more possibilities, since you'll keep your legion out for as long as possible without any fear of you not having the additional option. So that's really useful. I also have attack up. Obviously, Axe Legion does crazy amounts of damage, packs a huge punch with the axe and the explosives, so obviously more attack is in order. Then it goes for critical damage. If you can position your legion from behind, they will do some massive critical damage, but since I love using ground combos in conjunction with the Axe Legion and the Gladius mode, we're going to do some pretty crazy damage with the combos as well, and that's exactly what we see here with the crits. So that's pretty much what it's going to be for now. Pretty basic stuff, no real surprises, but it is just nice and simple, which is how I like it. And over at the skills, I won't look at too many of them just for the sake of time, but the ones that I like to use are Speedstar. Speedstar I really enjoy because one of the downsides about the Legion, or the Axe Legion, is that while he does summon the barrier, he has by far the slowest movement speed out of all of the legions. This actually isn't that much of a problem, since you don't want to go for chains too many times, or chain binding all that often, because enemies will start to break out of them much more easily. All that being said though, having more movement and smart play don't have to necessarily go hand in hand most of the time, but with Speedstar you will have more attack speed, and that's very important, especially in conjunction with the Gladius. The ground combo Gladius Axe Legion combo is very powerful, because this is just insane amounts of damage, and you can even have super armor as you're performing it, and you can stagger your enemies. Whenever you stagger an enemy, you can follow it up with more sync attacks, and it's just a very deadly dance of heavy weapons, and that's what I love so much about it. The next is going to be Autobind, not just for scrubs, I promise you, a perfect option that's very versatile. You can use it for crowd control if you hit large groups, and then because of the way the Axe Legion works, whenever it follows up with the sync attack, it will also plant multiple charges on whoever's in his range, meaning that this is a very good crowd control option overall. But then against larger enemies, then you can really do a huge number of damage on them just by virtue of the sync attacks. And then if they're still chains, go for a ground combo, which is insanely deadly with the Gladius mode, as I mentioned earlier. So there's really a lot that can be said about the Axe Legion. And one thing I also want to say is that the distribution of upgraded materials is a bit sparse, so hopefully with these videos you guys will have a better understanding of what you want to prioritize first. Primarily because you want to have something that's maxed out before post-game begins, and then kind of using that maxed out legion to help you upgrade all your other legions, your AED, and your weapons. But I think that's enough talk. I'd rather show than tell. There's plenty of things about the Axe Legion which makes him so fun, and all the different approaches that you can use with him when you use Perfect Call to kind of turn the tide against your enemies. So let's go ahead and head over to the demonstration. So one of the things I mentioned, or should have mentioned earlier, is that the training room is really good in Astral Chain, mostly because what that does is that it lets you learn the movesets of the enemies. So you can see here there are 2 power enemies, and those are very useful for learning how to do perfect calls. So let's see what we got here. Okay, so one of the things that you also have to learn is just the ability to know when to dismiss and when to call, and that will always leave you open for doing some more and more of your deflects, as you've seen earlier. Alright, here we go. Let's see what this move is. Oh, this is so exciting. I haven't recorded and played at the same time in a good long while. There's the deflect. We can follow it up with the auto chain binds. Very useful. Again, just want to take out these threats as soon as possible, and we can go for the finish off. Bullseye. Alright, so yeah, like practice really does make perfect as far as perfect calls go. Ooh, this guy, he's gonna go ahead and taunt us, so this will be fun. Go for another auto bind. The ground combo with the Gladius is insane. One thing you also want to practice in training mode if you can is to kind of learn how... Ooh, that was a surprise. One of the other things that you want to learn in training mode is how to send forth your Legion without going for the jump mid-combo. It says take a bit of practice. Sometimes your finger might linger too much, but that's something that you'll have to learn too. Okay, so there's that deflect. You go for the auto bind. Not quite, he's not in range. But again, just call them back if you can. Try to generate that momentum. Let's see what we can get here. Ooh, I was too early at that time. Goodness. There's a lot of variations of the attacks. Let's see if I can get an autobind here. Yes! Autobind is insanely useful, not just for beginners, as the name implies. Usually whenever you think auto, you think, oh, this is for new people. Okay, be careful. How much health do you have left? Still, yeah, pretty fair amount. One other thing too that you have to learn about timing with the Axe Legion is that you have to kind of wait a little bit before you call him back so that you can plant that charge, as you can see there. So yeah, as soon as he does the downward swing, you can call him back. He'll leave another charge. Okay, let's see what we can do here for some damage. There it is. I always like to go for the attack spam, just because with the attack spam, you can open up some more options. Okay, so calling forth the Legion here also allows you to knock some enemies to the ground if they stay there long enough. Axe Legion is insanely powerful, so a lot of the smaller enemies won't be much of a threat, and you actually don't even have to give them the satisfaction of you getting anywhere near them, which is really fun. So it's even a pretty decent range option. Axe Legion is just insanely versatile. Again, here we go. If you can just wait for them to hit the ground, that also works. See, like that explosion, again, you're just covering so many options this way. Most people won't even be able to get near you sometimes without taking massive damage as a result. Let's see if we can auto-bind this guy. Aerial enemies with the Axe Legion, other than, you know, like what you see here with enemies that are easy to bring down to the ground with the, with the send forth ability. Other than that though, and like these flying enemies can be a little bit tricky, especially when using Gladius mode, just because most of the tracking ends up going underneath them, which is kind of annoying, and that's when you have to necessitate doing things like Legion jumps and doing air combos, which is quite spectacular, as you probably guys know by now. Let's see, we have, I think, 3 more of these enemies here. I probably don't even need to go for finish offs anymore, we can just save some time. Okay, so another thing about Astral Chain I want to point out too is that this game is pretty forgiving when it comes to ranking. So, with all that being said, you don't have to worry too much. You just have to use different abilities the majority of the time, and you should leave the game with a nice S rank. So, yeah, as far as Platinum games go, this is a very beginner-friendly game, and why I'd recommend it to anyone that's even interested in getting to action games in the first place. So we got through that first area very swimmingly, but this is where the game gets really funny. So the thing about the Axe Legion is that it creates the detonations, and there are plenty of detonation boxes in this particular map. Great for doing some damage, obviously, but yeah, let's see what we can do here. So again, dismiss them whenever you can. Give yourself a little bit more time. Okay, I took some damage there. I'll see if I can get some of the health back by going for some finish-offs. Again, thanks to by virtue of him having amazing single target damage, Axe Legion can also just give you some heal in a tight spot. Oh boy. Okay, let's see. Call forth. This one has a pretty fair amount of health. See if I can avoid this large enemy while I still can. There we go. See how much damage we can do. Finish off, get that health back. Yeah, it helps to not panic too. Trying to maintain your composure while playing the Axe Legion is insanely important. I thought I could deflect that time. See if I can get a bind. Ooh, if I got it a little bit faster, I would have been able to bind him while he was in front of me, or while I was behind him rather. That would have been really, really high damage. But again, this guy is just OP. So that's another one down. And one flying enemy left, and I think there's going to be the boss of this area. So the other thing about finish-offs too, the reason why you want to prioritize them, is that it lets you have more limiter energy, and of course limiter energy means having them out more often. Ooh, he almost got me that one. That's a special move right there. This guy functions very differently in comparison to all the other power types. Again, go for the auto-bind if you can get away with it. Usually, the best time to do an auto-bind is right when the enemy is about to, when the enemy is about to, oh sorry, when you dodge an enemy attack. That's a really good way to do it. There we go. Just like that, melted the Minotaur. Honestly, that fight could have been a lot longer because of all these guys around us, but again, huge burst damage, massive numbers, and that's why I love it so much, and that's why it's carried me through so much. Finish off again, because why not? More energy. Very fun momentum based, that's the thing. And again, like, you have to practice learning perfect call ranges as well. Obviously, with different enemies it's a little bit different, but just get in the habit of dismissing your enemy as best as you can. So you can go for... Alright, that's fine. Let's see what we got here. One of the annoying things, though, about the Axe Legion having that dunking attack is that if they're over a bottomless pit, he just goes straight down, and he doesn't get anything done. Can I bind you? Ooh, yeah, see, that's the thing about the tracking aerial enemies. But again, Axe Legion just brings everyone down to heal. Bullseye. And just like that, we have finished a post-game mission with the Axe Legion with flying colors. At least I hope so. Please tell me this is the one time I didn't get an S+. Oh yeah. Like I said, very, very forgiving. Even if you're getting your teeth kicked in and you have to constantly revive yourself, it's still quite easy to get yourself that S+, so don't worry about that too much, but you will have to get a lot of them. So anyways, that pretty much does it for the Axe Legion. That run went really smoothly, which is nice. It's been a while since I've recorded and fought at the same time, and things turned out quite nicely. So Axe Legion, like I said, as you've seen in this video, he's all about just focusing down each of the enemies and using momentum against them by reflecting the attacks. If you have E-heal, then you can be a lot more reckless with just sending them back and forth and planting detonation charges wherever you go, just commanding the position over the entire map. Astral Chain is an amazing game with plenty of build opportunities. Each of the legions lend themselves to different playstyles, and honestly, each of these playstyles have the ability system and the ability codes which lend themselves to even more of different playstyles. So there's really a lot that we can say about this game, and a lot that we can explore. And like I said earlier, this is just what I've used thus far that's worked for me. And as time goes by, we might find even more optimal stuff that can let us do the much more harder maps. The one that I just did was still a pretty relatively easy map as far as post-game maps go, but as we go further and further, and as more people have become more spoiler-free, then we will be able to look at some more stuff too, and explore more of the intricacies of this wonderful, wonderful game. Anyways, guys, thank you very, very much for joining me for the very first Astral Chain Legion showcase, and I hope you guys join me for next time as we explore different build opportunities opportunities and different approaches. Until then, see you guys next time.